bubbly and beautiful host, Elizabeth. It's the Caffeinated Cooper Show.
Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Good evening, everybody. It is wonderful to be on with you tonight, and we are going to talk to an absolute legend tonight. I am so excited. I am such a music buff, and since I was little, I can remember sneaking into my sister's room, who was 15 years older than me, and she had all the good records, and I would put it on this little turntable that I had and play. I mean, everything and anything that I could get my hands on. And so music is such a wonderful, magical thing that I absolutely live and breathe and love. And so does our guest, Mr. Mike Score. Veteran frontman Mike Score and his iconic new wave synth pop band, A Flock of Seagulls, are returning to the US with a new tour starting this month that will take the band to Los Angeles, Tampa, Cleveland, and many other cities in 2024. The band, which recently returned from playing dates in UK, Ireland, Europe, and Asia, is set to tour the US. They will be in San Juan Capistrano, California on December 23rd. They just had their opening on December 15th, I believe, also in California. I don't have that in front of me, but I want to say it was close to Los Angeles. Fort Lauderdale on January 13th, Tampa on January 14th, St. Louis, January 26th. And that's only a few to name the cities that they have going on for their tour. I mean, you can take a look on the website, aflockofseagulls.org is a great place to follow. And tickets are available on etix.com. So that's etix.com. Mike and the band were long known for his legendary mane of hair that cascaded to the front of his face. Score said he has long given up the cut after he began losing his hair and now sports a shaved head look. But he appreciates the attention he gave the band as they earn their place in pop culture history. And without any further ado, Mr. Mike Score. How
Hello.
are you, Mike? It's great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you as well.
My goodness, we have a legend connected with us. Sometimes when you are such a huge fan of the works of others, you really just get excited. So I allow myself that for a moment.
Be as excited as you want.
I do want to start with the very beginning of the band's formation. And I read where you and Frank were hairdressers. Was that before the band came together or while you were just doing some gigs and trying to get recognition?
I used to own a hairdressing shop in Liverpool. We used to do a lot of punk styles and stuff like that. A lot of colors, a lot of curls, a lot of different stuff. I was in a band called Tuntrix at the time. I was playing bass and I got thrown out of that band. So I decided to start my own band so nobody could throw me out. So when that happened, Frank, who worked for me, he said, "Oh, I want to be in your new band." So I decided that because I'd seen synthesizers coming out now, and they were new, that was, where I wanted to be, on the very edge of whatever technology was then. So Frank took the bass, I bought a synth. We went into my hairdressing shop and we had a room upstairs, and Frank, myself, and my brother Ali, we just went up there to mess about, and it started to come together fairly quickly. Because none of us could play anyone else's songs, we had to write our own songs because it was so much easier than going, "Oh, what's that chord? what's he playing? It was just a case of like, I don't know, but that sounds good what you just did. So at that time we didn't really have a name, and I dubbed the band Level 7. Um, and that was kind of ruined because Level 42 came out, and I was like, now what are we going to be called now? So I don't know exactly where from, but the name of Flock of Seagulls came up. I was reading a book at the time called Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and I totally was into the vibe of that book. And then the Stranglers, who were literally like my favorite band, came out with a line in one of their songs that said a flock of seagulls, and it just seemed like the stars lined up, and we became a flock of seagulls, just kind of overnight. And that stuck. People knew us as that from day one.
It's a great original name for a band, but what about all the guys together? Did anybody sort of object, going, "What do you, a flock of seagulls? What do you mean?" Like,
it became a little bit of, oh, that's a great name, until we think of another name, and was it going to be the Seagulls or just Seagulls, or but a flock of seagulls just had a certain ring to it, and I think a friend of ours once, we said to him, we're calling the band a flock of seagulls. And he goes, that's what you sound like. You sound like a flock of seagulls. And we're like, we didn't know whether that was a compliment, because seagulls are pretty noisy, really. But I think he was right, and the songs we were playing and the things we were doing were our own original sound. And I don't think if we'd have called ourselves, the Beef Stews or something, it would have matched. We were spacey, the name's kind of spacey, and it was us. That just became us. And everybody in the band was, I think, quite proud of the fact that we'd thought of a name that no one else had thought of, and it was sticking. Record companies liked it, people that we met at gigs we were doing, they were like, why'd you call the band a flock of seagulls? It was a really good talking point.
oh, absolutely. And it's so memorable too. And there isn't a flock of anything else out there that is really memorable except for a flock of seagulls. And
Right.
Everybody knows the songs. So out of all of your chart topping songs, what is your personal favorite? And did it climb as high as you wanted it to?
Well, my favorite changes, because when I write a song, that is my new favorite. You know what I mean? So when I look back at the big hits, I think maybe Space Age was the best song. Just the atmosphere it creates, and the whole thing in that is it worked so well. I didn't want to have hardly any lyrics, and everyone else seemed to be filling their songs up with lyrics. And I was like, if I could write a song that you just said 3 words and it got the meaning across, I'd be real happy. And that, Space Age has only got, I think, 4 lines in each verse, It's got repetition, which is a great thing for rock and roll and stuff. Then I'd follow it with the likes of Wishing, which is more of a story and a very long song. And I like long songs because I liked Pink Floyd, and I like the idea of the song just carrying you away, And I used to, when we first recorded Wishing, I would put it on and it was 15 minutes long, and I would just keep playing it over and over again. I could easily lose 2 or 3 hours just listening to the same song over and over again. And then there was stuff like Quicksand, which is very heavy and very different to that. And to me, it's like, like the songs we write are like a box of chocolates, they're all chocolate, but you don't know what's inside them. So I really thought we were quite inventive the way we went about things. But we also looked at other big bands like, I don't know, AC/DC, which to us seemed to have written one song and it's lasted them 30 years, not as an insult, because they're a great band. We've been to see them and we love them. But from a songwriting perspective, I like to try and do different things. You know, the next thing I write might be a country song. Who knows? I might pick up a banjo and find something. You know, that's the way I kind of look at songwriting and music.
I have someone connected here. He goes by Bill's War Game World, and he's saying cosmic effects of the sun. He likes that one.
Uh, yeah, I did that one on my own as the band was breaking up, and it was just a lot of things going through my mind, and the only thing I could think of was all these things are happening because of the sun. It's the effect of the sun, you know. Sorry. And so I wanted to infuse that song with lots of effects and make it quite dreamy. And I got a young lady to sing some stuff on the front, and we echoed it all over the place. We got a good rhythm going, and it turned into somewhat of a journey. And you know, recording it, I had a great time because it was simply a case of it wasn't written; it was written in the studio, and it was just like, I think I'll pick up a bass now and play something, and if that works, we'll keep it. If not, I'll pick up a guitar, or I'll jump on a keyboard, or get the engineer to do something weird with the vocal or something. And I think it only took a couple of days. And as happens with quite a lot of Seagull songs, they write themselves. You know, they just come along and they go, oh, I'd like to have a bit of zizzle here, or a bit of a smash there, or a rhythm here, or and it just kind of comes into your brain as if you just reached out and what you need is right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I can remember the time when you were just so hot. You had so many chart topping songs, and everybody was clamoring to get in to see you. So now you're on tour, and it's really a lot of the same, but you see the same young women and men, and they're coming with their hair done. And did you think you would see that if we were to go back into the 80s and say, what do you think you're going to be doing in 2023?
I thought it would last. You know, when we got a single deal, we're like, oh, cool, we're on the way. I hope we get an album deal because we knew we had a few good songs. So we got an album deal, and the album was finished, and I think it sat on the shelf for maybe a year before it was put out. And that made us think, but it's not going to happen. You know, we've done all this work. We've recorded what we thought was a great album, and it's not getting put out, you know. But then when it did get put out, it went so big so quickly. And yeah, like you say, the tours we went from playing, I think, you know, 400 or 500 people to 45,000 people a night. And the craziness, which I don't think we saw that much of the craziness because we were always too busy to be involved in it, you know. Of course, when they tell you you're playing somewhere like, I don't know, Madison Square Garden or something, and you've sold out, it's exciting. You really want to go out and play for your fans. You go and play, you open up for the Police, and it's 60 and 70,000 fans, you know. And you have to look forward because it's almost scary to look behind you when you came from a little rehearsal room in Liverpool, and now you're looking out at one of the biggest stadiums in the world, and it's full of people, and they're going to watch you, you know, and and you're now part of this whole thing that's rock and roll, you know. Even though we didn't think it as rock and roll, we knew we were new wave kind of thing, but it's scary and exciting all at the same time.
You know, so to that point, did you or any of the other guys ever have any type of stage fright once you had so many people in front of you, or maybe just a few people, and it was just something that someone had to overcome?
We did have stage fright. The first time we walked actually out onto Madison Square Garden, because it was such an iconic place. We looked out and we went, this is incredible, amazing, and probably impossible that we, a flock of seagulls, are walking out to a sold out Madison Square Garden show. And we had nerves, but the thing that happens is if you hit that first note of the song right and you all hit it together, the electricity that lifts you through a show is 10 times better. And when all the crowd starts singing your songs, that's when you relax and you say, I understand now they're here to see us, not to criticize us, not to pull us down, but to actually to get into it with us. And it made them like part of the band, like a Seagulls choir almost.
That's so fantastic. And I've heard and spoken with a lot of people that have performed in front of huge audiences like that, and the energy just fills you. But then the day after, there's sort of like that day after effect where you're coming down from that natural adrenaline high. Do you have any type of meditation practices or anything that you realize that maybe I should do this to stay centered and focused after a big show?
Not personally. I was just, it takes about 3 or 4 days after a huge show like that for the shock to disappear. The shock of the fact that that was you up there performing the songs you'd written in a box in Liverpool, and people loving it. And, it gives you such a weird sense of we now belong to the people. It's not our band anymore. It is our band because the four of us were close, but now this band includes 100,000 people every night or whatever it is, and they're excited and their excitement lifts us. And you meet people the next day and they just say hi. There's people you've never seen, but you're walking down, say, through New York, and people go, yeah, I was at the show last night, it was great, and they wave, and you just feel elated. It's kind of like, thank God I didn't have to get up this morning and go dig holes in the road in the rain, to be alive.
Absolutely. And once life turned and you realized you're all celebrities, there are people that are becoming fanatic about you. What changed in your life? What was the big thing where you thought, not too sure?
I don't know. I guess for me, I've always stayed within my own boundaries.
No.
I haven't let anything take me outside myself into something unusual that I can't handle. I spoke to my brother about this once, and he said, you got to keep one foot on the ground. You can be in space, but as long as one foot is anchored somewhere, you can pull yourself back. And to me, that was, he and we understood where we were. The other guys, we thought were a little bit crazier and wanted to do other things. And some people want to play the part of a rock and roller. And personally, I was more into the songwriting, and I wanted that to extend. I wanted to write an unforgettable song. That was like my main goal, and I didn't realize I'd already done it. You don't know it's unforgettable till 40 years later when people are still singing it. So
Yeah, and that's that's a great point to bring up the songwriting. You had mentioned in the green room that you are writing new music. There's new music coming out from A Flock of Seagulls.
yeah, sorry, I was just going to say I never stop writing. I can wake up at 4 a.m, go sit at my synth or whatever, pick up a guitar, and within 5 minutes I'll be writing a song. Whether it's any good or not, I'll tell you tomorrow. But that's my main enjoyment of the whole music scene, is coming up with a new idea, and then going, where did that come from? It's always a shock to me when I write a new song.
But okay, so you're writing constantly all the time because that's part of your art. How do you get to a point to where you say, you know what, this one I want to put into production, this one I'm going to play with, or do you play with all of them?
Yeah, yeah, and you never stop. I'm actually still messing about with Iran. I'm still messing about with Space Age. Because you mess about with it and you mess about with, say, Space Age, and then you've got The More You Live, which is, basically Space Age Mark II, and then a couple of other songs are derivative from that. Um, it's a weird thing. Songwriting is, to me, is a weird thing because I had no training in music at all. And I know people that can play a guitar that will knock your socks off, but they can't write a song. And to me, writing a song is fairly easy, but I can't play guitar worth a penny, So, but I can come up with an idea, and it's kind of weird how different people have focus on different parts of music.
So if any old
Yeah.
teachers, going back to when you're usually asked, let's say 10, 11 years old, and they say, oh, Mike, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you have said?
Ah, rich and famous, right?
Check.
Yeah. When I was 11, I obviously wanted to be a footballer because, I was in Liverpool and that was the pinnacle of life. um, Sorry about the cough. I'm just getting over a cold.
Oh, sorry.
But in Liverpool, yeah, being a footballer, playing for Liverpool or Everton, or even just becoming a professional footballer, um, that's what you basically aimed for. Um, I think music took me when I was a paper boy delivering papers, and I used to have my little transistor radio, and
Wow.
I would always like tune in to the top 40 or Radio Caroline, which it was in the day, and listen to new songs. Um, and football is a weekend thing. When you're a paper boy, it's 5, 6 in the morning, and you're listening to all this stuff, and that's the only noise around.
Yeah.
I think that's really what addicted me to music.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a great visual. What was that song that you couldn't wait to come on the radio? Because it's not like we had playlists back then. There was no such thing. You just had to wait for the DJ to spin it, and then you got to hear it.
Yeah, and you could crank it up a notch. Songs. God, I can't remember, but Status Quo. Pictures of Matchstick Man and stuff like that. A song called "Hole in My Shoe." I can't remember who did that right now, but all those hippie songs, they used to really get to me. And before that, I'd only listened to what my dad played, and that was Nat King Cole and Matt
Mm,
Monroe and stuff like that. So this stuff to me was totally new and different and young, and I could feel that energy from it. And I used to play it to my mum, and then she would say she didn't like it. And then I remember coming home one day, and she had the radio on playing all this new stuff that I'd showed her. And after that, she was like, "If that's what you want to be, you go do it."
oh,
Because
wow.
it just took her a couple of weeks listening to get into it, and then she was on my side about it.
It was a very new sound. Some sounds from uneducatedly, just me as a listener, they sort of mosey along with each other. They hold hands. It's a slow evolution. But when synth came in to the scene, it was very different and very refreshing. So my next question here is, with that different, new, wonderful sound and the music that is to be coming out soon, is it an evolution of the beginning, or is it staying true to, like Iran and Space Age Love Story and Wishing and Nightmares? And
I would say it's a bit of both. It's definitely a flock of seagulls sounding. Um, I think the writing has become a little bit more personal, a more personal view for the lyrics. Um, I still like songs that have very few lyrics that give you room to think about what was just said, because you can say a whole lot in one line if the song will carry it, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so yeah, it's an evolution, but it's also revolving around, like you might say, space age is a static point. So the evolution goes around it, And I think people that have been fans of ours for a long time will smile because they'll go, I know where this comes from. I know where it's going.
Mhm.
And sometimes people like that in music, they like a continuation of what they already like.
Yeah, it's like a little love note. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Or you
when
just somewhere in your head you go, oh yeah, this reminds me of 25 years ago, but it's brand new,
yeah, yeah,
Still takes you on a trip. And that's a big thing with a song. A song should take you to a point where you feel the emotion of it,
mhm.
whether it's something heavy and dark or light and trippy, or just makes you think about an old girlfriend or whatever. It should take you there.
Oh, absolutely. So when and where could we maybe expect to hear about the new music release for A Flock of Seagulls?
Well, the new album is basically done. There'll be a few changes after Christmas. We'll look at it in January, and I expect that it will be out late February going into March. Maybe a couple of singles first and then the album. Um, it's an album that I started to write during the pandemic because we had a year off.
Yeah.
So I just sat down every day in my studio and just, if a song came up, it came up, and I'd continue with it. Um, so it's evolved itself over what, 3 years now,
Mm.
and I can't wait for it to come out. But it's also scary that it's going to come out because they've been my babies for so long, and now I have to shove them out the door and go out into the world, and prove yourselves. Um, but I think it's going to start at the end of February, and hopefully the album will come out end of March into April, something like that. And that's great because our tour will then latch on to that, and it will all become a full tour. We never stop touring. We're always playing live. It's great. It's just playing live is another one of those. What else are you going to do with your life? You've got to go out and play your songs.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about the pandemic for just a moment. Are there any new hobbies or anything that you picked up or anything you were able to put more time into um, during the pandemic?
Well, before the pandemic, I couldn't drum to save my life. And by the end of it, I couldn't drum to save your life. But I can drum. It wouldn't save anyone's life. Um, I learned to mow the lawn and stuff like that rather than getting other people to do it. And I learned to take things a bit easier, not be such a workaholic. Um, I think it allowed a lot of people to just relax a little bit. It was a worrying time, but a lot of people just spent it at home. And that way you could relax a little bit and think about life before and how life's going to be after. And, I can only look at it from my point of view, my circumstances. For me, it was a great break. It was time to take a big deep breath and relax. And then as soon as we could, we went back out on the road. And that was a huge relief. The fact that, okay, the pandemic had come along, it destroyed a lot of things, but other things would get back together, like touring and stuff like that wasn't dead.
Right.
Uh, and, playing live is exciting. So it was a great a relief to get back to something you knew as well.
And speaking about touring live, so I have the date scrolling across the bottom of the screen. It looks like the next show is December 23rd, so this week. And
Yep.
you just had a show on the 15th. How did that go?
That was really good. We had a great audience, you know. Some of these shows we do in December, usually in December, we actually go out as a different format. Most of the time we go out as a 4-piece band. Everything's played live. We do use samples, but we trigger them live. We don't use, backing tracks as such. In December, we do use backing tracks, and only 2 of us go out, and it's a much more almost it's more technical. It's more regimented, and a lot of people that have seen us live, say 4 or 5 times as a whole band, for them it's a refresher. It's kind of like, this is more basic. It's more like playing demos, and they seem to like it. So I just think every December we'll go out, and just 2 of us will do that, and enjoy it that way, which gives everyone else the chance to get ready for Christmas.
That's very nice. Oh my goodness. Yes, that is very nice. I was sitting here thinking about something that is coming into light. I can name a couple other bands, I'm sure that you're aware of it, but there are some members of bands that were very big back in the day, and those members are deceased, and they're bringing them back through AI. And we're not here to talk about other bands. We're here to talk about A Flock of Seagulls. But I would like your opinion, Mike. What do you think? Do you see happening with AI within music? And would you ever use anything like that for the band?
I don't know if I'd ever use it. I'd have to see it and get a really good proposal of how it would be used. I think there's a lot of talk about it because it's fairly new, but I think it will. I think it has been used already many times. And this whole thing about, say, the Beatles, that song being AI, I think if it wasn't called AI, it would be called something else. I think AI is being used all the time in videos and movies and stuff like that. So it's a natural progression. And, musicians like to use the very latest thing before anyone else gets to it. We'll see. I think it's still a fairly new area, but there's a lot of what has been AI been called something else before this.
That's a very good point. Absolutely. So I noticed on your website that you have A Flock of Seagulls String Theory, which is a 4 CD album box set, and that is available. It's available coming soon, correct?
I think it's actually a re-release. I think they released it at one point and it sold out, so they had to remake it and re-release it. String Theory is a lot of stuff done, old songs done with an orchestral leaning. They had an orchestra come in, play the songs. We had a orchestral director come in, write a few new parts. We'd never thought of how would our songs sound with an orchestra, and strangely enough, they sound really good. I think there's enough different things for an orchestra to do in there that it makes it a bit more inventive. It's not run-of-the-mill orchestral stabs and runs and stuff like that. I like it. I think it sounds good. I think some of the bits and pieces and outtakes, will bring a smile to people's faces. And the other thing was, when we were making that, because of the orchestra, there's a couple of songs in there that I actually wanted to rewrite the lyrics and everything, but of course then they're new songs, so they weren't included on any of that. But it did inspire a couple of new songs that are going to be on the next album. So it's definitely worth a listen if you're into the Seagulls. Um, it's a good extension of the whole Seagulls world.
So I know that a lot of TV shows and movies have touched back to the band and to production to see if they can get the rights to use some of your songs in their production. Is there anything currently where we may hear some of your songs in production soon?
Um, I'm not actually sure. I'm pretty sure there's a couple coming up because I remember signing a few contracts about maybe a year ago that they could use them in movies.
Mm.
But I'm not sure. You know, like albums, movies have a different title when they're being made. You know, and they've signed contracts under those titles. It could be Jamie's Home Run, but when it comes out, it's The Fox in the Garden or something. So, but yeah, we always seem to have some music in movies, and I love that.
Mhm.
That's a wider audience, and I think for people that don't know the band intimately, but hear it at the end of a movie or during a movie, they might go, "Oh, what's that? I really like that." They might go, "That's rubbish. Get it, throw it away." But that's the chance you take, I guess.
So you also have 40th anniversary reissue, and that is under your music label, correct? Do I have that right? August Day?
August Day is the label we're on. It's an independent label. Um, I can't say that I really enjoyed having a big record company. And I didn't have a record company for a long time till we found August Day, and they are, a nice label that talks to the band about what they want to do and how we're going to do it. And they don't just try and steamroll at the band and grab our music and do what they want to do with it. So they're a nice working label, and I hope they do very well.
What about the 40th anniversary reissue? Do you have all the songs you wanted on there?
I think that was the BMG
Mm,
set. I think that was 4 or 5 albums. I'm not absolutely. I remember working with them on that, and yes, there's everything that a Seagulls fan could want from the 80s is in that package. If you're just getting into the band, I would say that's the package to get
Okay.
because it's got everything. It's got B-sides. I think it's got a full album of B-sides, and everything else is A-sides and hits and variations and remastering and stuff like that. So um, maybe somebody will take one of them and AI it, and it'll become something else.
So I do see it on your website, a flockofseagulls.org. 40th anniversary reissue, remastered on limited edition contour vinyl, color vinyl, and 3 CDs with bonus tracks out February 17th. And so are you taking pre-orders on the website, or how does that work?
We don't work with that side of it. We only work with the band side and the songwriting side. All the sales, merchandise, everything is all done by other people. I think that if you start getting into that, it takes away from your thinking about the music. You know, I'm into this for the music, not for the T-shirts and stuff like that. I love it if people buy the merchandise,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's up to me to go, hey, buy my shirt, when I should be going, hey, buy my album.
Right, right.
So
I do have a question here from Mr. Michael Harrison. I believe we may have mentioned it a few minutes ago, but he says, what genre would you label Flock of Seagulls?
well, we were labeled new wave.
Mm-hmm.
We never thought we were new wave. We just thought we were an interesting band. A band that could turn its hand to anything if it felt like it. Like I said before, if we suddenly decided to go country, nobody should be surprised, because that if that suddenly takes us, that's our choice, you know. I think if you label a band, it forces them into a corner,
Yeah.
and that's when you kind of go, well, we can't write that because our fans won't like it. It's not what they're used to. But I think in our case, it could be anything, and fans would accept it because it's got our atmospheres in it. You know,
Yeah.
if we wrote a country song, it would still be have a Seagulls atmosphere, you know,
Yeah.
and it might have Seagulls style lyrics, but it might be country instead of new wave. Um, and stuff that we have written in the past has been really heavy, like Quicksand is really heavy, you know. We
Yeah.
try and be, what's the word, onomatopoeic,
Mhm.
where the music and the lyrics put your mind in that situation, especially like Quicksand, which when you listen to it is like falling through quicksand, you know.
Mhm.
It's heavy, it's hard to get through. And yet Space Age Love Song is a love song and it lifts you up, you
Mhm.
know. So I think that's more important than being labeled and being put in a box, because every band hates to be put in a box, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I have another question from a viewer, Joe Mathis. Did you ever meet Devo?
Devo, yeah. Yeah, we've met them. We toured with them. Did a few shows with them. Great guys, great songs. Love it's sometimes it's so good when you've loved a song for years, and then you suddenly get to do a few gigs with the band, you know, and you get to know them. Um, I've heard it said, "Don't ever meet your heroes," you know, because you'll be disappointed. But I don't think I've ever met a hero that's of mine that's disappointed me. You
Mm.
know, I think it might be because I listen to their music, I talk to them, and I can relate to both. You know, yeah, Devo. We had some tours with them, and they were great. We enjoyed watching them. You
That's
know,
fantastic.
so
So speaking of atmosphere, I have to ask you about the atmosphere behind you. Did I happen to see a lion's head on the wall behind you?
there, that lion's head. That was a strange night. We were leaving somewhere out in the middle of the country. We were leaving a show, and we decided to stop and get some drinks and cokes and stuff like that. And I walked into this truck stop, and there was a row of lions heads. These lions heads, and I'm like, I have to get one of those, you know. And I didn't buy it straight away. We went on to the next one, and all I could think about was, I should have got that lion's head. You know, I have this thing now that when you see something, you better buy it right away, because if you don't buy it right now, you'll never find it again. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like if you find a pair of blue shoes that you like, buy two pairs because you will never find them again. So anyway, I was thinking about the lion's head, and then about a month or so went by, and I was like, oh yeah, I really missed that lion's head. I missed it. And we went to another place, and they had a lion's head, and I was just like, I don't care if we have to wait for a week. I'm getting that lion's head. So I brought them home to my studio, and I put them up on the wall with the cow's head that I already had up there. So he's a good buddy of mine. He watches when I write a song.
Oh, how cool. Well, thank you so much for indulging me on that silly little question. I just saw it there for a minute. I had to ask. But Mike, congratulations on all your success. It is an honor to be able to spend some time and chat with you this evening. And hey, knock it out of the park. Have a great time on the 23rd in Capistrano.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do a great show. People are gonna be singing along. Um, if I wasn't playing, I think I'd go to that one.
That's
So,
fantastic. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful evening. Again, if there's anything you ever want to come on the show and talk about, please let me know. You're a friend of the show and you are just such a lovely person. I really
thank you.
appreciate you sharing with us tonight.
Thank you very much. And I was glad to be here.
Yes. All right. Well, have a
All
wonderful.
right.
I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, everybody. What a great show. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for following the show. And as always, we are blessed. You are blessed.